Charge your thing.
Oh, so your battery hanging out. I've seen it. Oh, yeah, you're right.
So excited. I think I'm going to do it, and I feel that I actually know people doing it, because it feels extremely cheery to me, so, yeah.
Not even. Are you saying? No. Sprint for it. No, it's
Right. Good morning. Good morning. How is everybody? I had another thought. It's gonna rain. I'm so kind of annoyed. I love the rain so much, but my daughter has like her playoff games for softball tomorrow. I'm like, don't. My mom is here. Oh, thank you. I'll talk more about it a little bit more on Monday, but I just want to make sure it's on your mind, that you're starting to prepare, you're starting to think about it. Yeah.
Can we have a potluck on Monday?
Can we have a potluck for our last topic of prostitution? Right, have a potluck on the prostitution day. If anyone wants to bring snacks on Monday. Yes, so we'll class, and then on Wednesday, we have the final, which is on Canvas. And then I will be here during finals week. I'll write that up on Monday in case you would like to come meet with me or check in with anything. And as I mentioned, this is a great time to be checking your grade on Canvas, make sure everything looks correct. And please let me know if it's not for any reason so I can fix it. But we are very, very close to the end of the semester. We'll get to the last slides today. I think how many times did I say last in our last class? Like 9 maybe. Again, I get sentimental. But we have one slide left for chapter 17, which we'll talk about. And then I have a song, a little activity we're going to do with that. And then we will get to chapter 18. And I have some fun, very sexualized fun ads to share with you. And then watch part of a documentary on pornography. So things to look forward to for today. I told my mom got a serial killers in my abnormal psych class, and then prostitution and pornography here. Very colorful day, right? Okay, so are there any other questions about like the schedule or anything coming up at all? Also don't forget, I'll write this up here. Don't forget about the clothing. Also do this thing. I'll talk about that a little bit more on Monday as well, just to remind you. We went over it a bit last time, but I'll go over it one more time on Monday. But start thinking about the final, start studying, start working on the closing assignment, and hang in there, right? We're almost there. So last time, right, we talked all about rape, intimate violence, right, when it comes to pedophilia. We talked about sexual harassment. And so the one thing that we have left in this chapter, the other type of sexual coercion, is intimate partner violence. So it used to be called domestic violence. They changed the name to be a little bit more broad. Intimate partner violence, a pattern of coercive behavior designed to exert power and control over a person that you are in an intimate relationship with. So using intimidation or threats, could be physical harassment, it could be emotional, it could be sexual. There's a lot of different ways that intimate partner violence can show up. Right? And this is a very, very cyclical occurrence, right? It tends to be a pattern rather than a single isolated incident. And so what you tend to see is that it follows this pattern of like, there's some kind of an abusive event. So you have some form of abuse, whether it's physical or emotional or sexual. And then that person tends to feel really bad about it. They express a lot of remorse and guilt. I didn't mean to, I'll never do it again. I'm so sorry, please don't leave me, right? And then often they're incredibly sweet and like loving and devoted afterward, maybe even more so than they would normally be. And so in this phase, what you get is somebody does something, well, they felt bad about it, they'll never do it again. They promise, look, they're trying to make up for it, they're being really kind. And then something else happens, some other kind of event, stressor, trigger, and we're right back to another event of abuse, right? And this tends to be something that people do in a very cyclical pattern, which is why it's so hard for people to leave relationships that are abusive. What happens is partners get caught in this trap of, well, they felt bad, they'll never do it again. They promise they'll never do it again. Look, they're even being super kind and sweet to me, showing me that they love me, but then it happens again and again, right? And this tends to be a very common presentation of this. A lot of movies featuring this, probably one of the best portrayals was the movie Enough. It's a little bit older, but great portrayal of this. Lots of campaigns to raise awareness related to it, but it does tend to be something that's very cyclical in nature. Yeah.
Often in a relationship, it starts with the sweet, loving, and devoted thing. Right?
Yeah.
But like over the top.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, remember when we talked about like the chemistry of falling in love? Feels like a while ago now, right? But in the beginning, people don't tend to fight a lot. There's a lot of like passion and like intimacy and things are really good. But then as things start to get a little bit more like serious, you might start to see more signs of things that were maybe hidden at first. Or this could be something that emerges very early. It's a lot of like power and control related. And so this doesn't always have to be, physical. It can also be emotional, it could be financial, right? Sometimes you see like a partner will, use money to hang over their partner's head. And that can be a form of intimidation or threat, as just as much as it could be something that's sexual or emotional or physical. As I mentioned last time, I have a song that I want to play for you that I'm going to have you listen to. I'm sorry if you get this stuck in your head for the day and you hate it. It's Love the Way You Lie by Eminem. And I'm going to play the video. Good or bad? Mixed. So I'm going to use the lyrics to you. And as you're listening to this video as well. And the video is just as visually portraying as the lyrics are. But what I want you to do when this is over, is get into groups and answer the question on the back of us. So you don't need to turn in one per person, you can turn in one per group. But as you go through the song, feel free to like highlight or underline lyrics that stand out to you that relate to the question on the back. That way, when you get into your group, you have some thoughts already. You won't want to get I'm going to grade it partially. All right. Yeah, right. All right. So here are the lyrics, right? Obviously there's some swearing and stuff in here, but Eminem. My daughter's walk-up song in softballs and Eminem saying, but it's a lose yourself. It has less swearing, right? So as I play the video, watch the video. And you're welcome if you'd rather highlight stuff afterward, you can do that. But when we're done, you'll get into groups of just like 2, 3, 4 people, whatever's easy. And I want you to look at some of the lyrics and how they connect to intimate partner violence. You could easily say the whole song, the whole video, everything, but I want you to try and kind of pick some things out that stand out to you. So let me bring this up here and I will play it for you. You're just going to turn in one sheet per group. So you can write all of your names on it. If you want to turn in your own, that's fine, but just one per group. And then oops, let me turn that back on. I want you to highlight or like underline certain lyrics. What are some things that stand out to you as like examples of the cycle or things that are very representative specifically of the violence? It could also be from the video. Either one, there's a lot of symbolism in the video as well. But I'll give you a little bit of time, then we'll talk about it and I will like it. So whatever's convenient around you. If you came in late, I have some extra copies up here. If you want to come grab them.
Yeah.
You're just circle.
Are we just talking about it?
I'll talk about it and then you're gonna right thoughts.
The first thing I thought that's right.
Okay, so we're gonna put this on. There. Okay, so I believe there. Yeah.
Then he's like.
The cycle of abuse and then guilt and then. It's just sort of. Okay.
Another one I highlighted too is she makes me and I love it. I know, it's like, it's very toxic. Like. That's really. That's this one. Yeah. Like. Yeah. Yeah, so we go to the big first. I said down to, I also related, like after this, when I said I laid here on her, all that is still in there, like it literally is like the. It's like the literal cycle. It's of. And yeah. Right. And then, but that's all right, because I like the way it hurts, like it was the fun, and we can come back. It's pretty very involved in it. Yeah. Back, we're running right back. Where are you going? Yeah, well, sounds like. Yeah. That's like the cycle. Yeah. Now the broken record one, I was, what should I say, it's best to know you're, guys don't know yet, because today was done. That was yesterday, yesterday is over, whatever. That reminds me of like, it's like them like fighting and then like they made up, so then like they're all good now, like, you know, like they just kind of like.
Yeah,
And also like. Yes. Exactly. They would like fight literally like every other day, and so like they were like people like, oh, we're now, and I've never been there, like that was this. Yeah, it's like that. So that's but that like. Then some of the like actual videos, like they bought like. Oh, I didn't even know, like so sweet. Yeah, I didn't write it. Wait, which one? No, in the video. Oh. Like bought, and he.
Not that like, right, like you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one too, and you fall back into the same pattern. Your temperature's as bad as mine, the same as mine. Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's literally It's like they love each other so much. They love each other, but they work well. Can't go so well.
That was this one. Yes.
It's like a very small room.
No,
Not really.
yeah. I created a system for marketing staff, so I ran like a evening, so. Right here and I used to exits and I fixed the part. He's part.
So let's take just a couple more minutes. and then we'll
Yeah,
talk.
like. Other people's like their parents or other. They're both in apartments, right? Yeah. It's reference to this. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, they got it all together. Yeah. That's. Yeah. That's okay. Yeah. Yes. Teddy bear, thanks. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sarah, was there any? So the like. No, I can add bullets from the video. Like we have all this things. Okay. Like you, I don't know. You were saying that you were saying that. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So it was a trees like where. Yeah. Rest is not much for better. Like a lot of more high standards. Yeah, to break that. That's my. He's like, how do you? I don't That's all, yeah. L-I-L-E-S.
Yeah, that was my remorse.
What's that?
Line damage. The man says, don't take this. And I said,
Oh, that's fun.
Never let you lose. That's not great.
So start having thoughts and again, make sure we're first in the scene and turning in. Oh, did we? I didn't know this. Maybe for next month.
It's good. Here it is.
All right, let's talk about this together and then I'll collect it from you.
Oh.
Say the whole song, like my favorite, like highlighted and marked all over. But what are some of the things that you maybe that stood out to you or that you wrote? What are some of the things that you wrote down as a group? Anyone want to start? Yeah.
It's like the part where it's like when it's going in good, when it's bad, it's awful.
Uh-huh.
And then the same thing like the level chorus.
Right.
Oh, like, but that's all right. The parents, oh, so the way to die.
Uh-huh.
And then the part where she's like saying the soul hates me and I love it. It's my stuff.
Yeah. Interesting, like the blending of like the hate and the passion, and that's something that you actually see a lot in the media, like blending like hatred and anger and passion and intimacy all together. Which I think only going to perpetuate some of those issues. What else? Yeah.
I think one of the interesting set of lines when they're going, you ever love somebody so much you can barely breathe even when you're with them, and then they jump to now you're fucking sick of looking at them. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And it's interesting that like again in both ways, it's just the intensity on both sides, right? Rather than kind of being in the middle. Great. All right. Other thoughts? What else? Yeah. And then I'll come over.
It's like you're feeling that guilt.
Yeah.
Remorse and right after things someone.
Yeah, for sure. Right. So an act of abuse and then the remorse and guilt after. Yeah.
But your temper is just as bad as mine. You're the same as me. Much like verbal abuse, blaming the other person why the relationship's gone bad.
Yeah. Right. And you see it's both of them a little bit, right? Like they both are very like hot tempered, which only adds, I think, to the cycle. It seems like he's a little bit more so, but like still, it's both of them. What else? What other stuff? Yeah.
It's like like your experience.
Yeah.
Intensifies, like I guess, like all those butterfly.
Yeah.
Experience.
I like that. Mm-hmm.
And then also yesterday was over, yesterday's over, it's a different day, which is kind of saying to like let go of the past as a way to kind of continue those cycles, like, oh, that's the past, we worked through it, we went through this.
Right.
We don't forgive and forget, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which then just.
Yeah, and you definitely see that cycle in the video and in the lyrics, right? That like kind of going back and forth. And I added this here too, as you were writing. Oftentimes there's periods of normal behavior in there as well, right? So maybe we have, this sweet, loving, devoted, like gestures or behavior, and then kind of normal for a while, and then something happens and it triggers us back, right? And so you see that cycle just over and over again in here. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
The cycle happens in some of the first two lines.
Sure.
Or these two lines. It says, wait, where are you going? I'm leaving you. No, you ain't. Come back. Or no, it's yeah, come back. We'll run right back. Here we go again. It's so insane. Because when it's going good, it's going great. I'm like Superman with the wind in his back. She's Lois Lane, but when it's bad, it's awful. I feel so ashamed. I snap.
Yeah. Yeah, it very much highlighting that cycle. And again, like it's almost the whole thing, right? And then the video, the fact that there's flames and fire and showing everything kind of burning and that passion, very much passion and anger linking together. And we do that, like I said, we do that a lot, right? The idea of like, two people fighting and being violent and physical and angry, and then it leads to like passionate, like make up angry sex, right? Like, sometimes that happens, but I think it just perpetuates that cycle of like kind of violent behavior or like normalizing some of that violence. And then I heard you talking about it up here, right? He buys her a gift, right? Like as kind of a gesture of being like sweet, kind of little like bear or whatever, a stuffed animal, right? And then like just round and round and round, right? And it's very, very difficult to break that cycle, right? It's a cycle of like lies and broken promises and violence, and it just goes round and round. And a lot of people would rather deal with that than be alone, right? And like oftentimes, again, they feel bad, they didn't mean to do it, right? It's like there won't be a next time, but there will be a next time, right? Like you kind of see that again playing out over and over in here. Anything else? Any other things that stood out to you? I think we got a good Start, yeah.
When he said, if she ever tries to leave again, I'm gonna take her to the bed and set that on something.
Yeah.
That was wild, alarming.
I know.
Yeah. Red flag.
Scared to leave, said it was.
Yeah.
Um.
And that's another really good point too, is that sometimes I'll say out of fear, you know, like what's gonna happen to me if I do try them? And some very obvious blatant threats happening, right?
I kind of interpret it differently. I'm like, it's just one of those things like the longer you stay in the cycle, like that's more likely to happen. I don't know, like I guess in these relationships, and that's why people push you to leave, because the longer you allow this to happen, the worse you allow it to get eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, it almost becomes more and more normalized the longer that it goes on, but then it sometimes escalates to more and more severe. Which is why it's important to get out of that, right? Even if it's just temporarily getting out, but trying to break that cycle, right? And people can obviously break the cycle and stop, right? And things can be fine, but it's very common that it's just round and round and round it tends to go, right? All right, if you want to go ahead and pass those up, I will take them from you. Right. Great, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah. Thank you. They're also highlighted beautifully. Okay. Thank you. All right, so I have everyone. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Do what you're thinking. All right. Are you ready for this? Our last group of slides. I've been waiting to say that for like 32 minutes. It's the last slides, the last chapter, right? So chapter 18 will look at selling sex, so sexual images, selling sex pornography and prostitution, and a little bit of like sex trafficking as well at the end. We'll talk about that. So we'll talk about the use of sexuality in the media. That's kind of what we'll focus on today. And then start the topic of pornography. I do have part of a documentary to show you about that, but we'll get there. So one of the things that we see a lot, and some of you did this for one of your assignment options, is that we use sex all the time in advertising, right? We use sex to sell things constantly. And oftentimes it's quite shameful, the level that it's used to. Like if you open any pop culture magazine, there are a lot of ads where like the item isn't even in the ad and like everybody's naked, right? Like cologne ads are the worst. Like oftentimes you have to search the ad for like what it's for, or water, or some like clothing brands, like it'd be like, oh, it's for a purse, and there's 7 naked people in the ad, right? And there's not even a purse anywhere to be found. And so the reason for that is when we're advertising, we have to get your attention. That is like the very first goal and purpose of advertising. We got to capture your attention somehow. And one of the ways that often we do that is through using sex. Right? Sex tends to get people's attention. We have to slowly up the ante as it becomes more and more normalized. But we get your attention, and then we have to get you excited about the product, right? So we have the attention, then excitement, and then we have to link those two together somehow, right? And so by doing that, we get you excited about an item or a product or something that we're selling. And oftentimes sex is something that we use in order to get that excitement out of someone. Yeah.
The most memorable ads like this was like, I think it was Axe body spray.
Oh,
And it's like a football player walking across the field. There's a giant woman like covered in a veil, and he gets into the locker room and there are 7 women like naked, and she drops and he's like, oh.
yeah, there's so many of them, right? I have some to share with you. I had to really like limit myself because there's just countless of them. But yeah, it's stuff like that. Axe, one of mine is an Axe commercial, right? And so there's just a ton of these, right? And the interesting thing is sometimes they get banned because they're so scandalous, but by banning them, it just makes them more popular, right? Like you all know, they're all nodding, right? Like, so it's strategic at the same time. And sometimes it's subliminal, right? Like very commonly we use like little subliminal messages, right? It's not over the top. You learn to link two things together. And other times it's just so ridiculously blatant and like, almost just like inexcusable, right, in a way. And I have some examples to share with you, and they get progressively more scandalous. So I'm going to start with the mildest one, and then we'll just escalate from there. I have 4. And it took a lot to narrow it down to 4, right? So let me let me turn off the recording here for a second. So who doesn't ever want Skittles again after that, right? So again, I had to really look at myself. There are so many, right? And that last one was banned as well. Of course, it was so easy to find, right? Ridiculously easy to find. But that's something that's not uncommon, right? Like we see so much sexuality shamefully used in advertising as a way to get your attention, right? Like you were all watching it or like mortified and had to look away. Some of you might go home and share it with somebody else, right? Like, and so it gets a lot of attention and it gets you excited or repulsed even, which still accomplishes the same goal of getting you to pay attention to what they're doing, right? And so a lot of sexuality used in the media, it's blatant, it's obvious, and sometimes it can also be a little bit more subliminal or subtle, but we use it a lot, right? It's definitely something that's very, very common. And if you find one that's shameful, send it to me, right? Feel free to send it to me. That's how I have such great examples. People send them to me all the time. Give me some explanation. Sometimes I get like a random YouTube link and I'm afraid to open it, right? At least tell me what you're sending me. But please send them. I don't mind at all. All right. From here, we'll talk about a couple of different types of sex for sale. So we'll talk about pornography, and then next time, prostitution and sex trafficking. But pornography, one of the biggest industries of selling sexuality, right? There's an incredible amount of pornography out there. Very sexually explicit material. It can be images, it can be text, it can be videos, it can be a whole host of different like types of media. But the point of pornography, right, to cause sexual arousal. A little bit different than erotica, right? And so the book makes this distinction, and there is a big distinction in the market as well. And some of you went to the sex shops as one of your field trips. And there is really just an absolute huge market for this. It has been around a very long time. There's every possible little niche of this that you can find. Erotica is typically a little bit more like respectful, but we typically talk about pornography as like hardcore pornography and softcore pornography. Erotica is even more like soft in a sense that it's more typically like geared toward couples, a little bit more so than maybe hard pornography, a little bit more like affectionate depictions of sexuality, sometimes plot even being involved in there. There's a lot of stereotypes of pornography, but a few years back, gosh, it's maybe been 10, 12 years at this point, there was a huge shift in the pornography industry toward trying to do more like erotica based stuff to reach couples, right? So rather than like traditional old like hardcore pornography with the stereotypes of like the delivery guy, right? Like coming or the pool guy or whatnot. They started making what they call blockbuster erotica or blockbuster pornography. Like Pirates was like the #1 selling one. It was based on Pirates of the Caribbean. It had plots, but then ridiculous sex like throughout it. What was that? Yeah, you will not find that on Disney Plus. No. But there was a like most of these became very popular about 10, 12 years ago. Of trying to kind of reach more people and shed some of the very intense stereotypes that tend to come around pornography, right? There tend to be a lot of stereotypes of this and of places where it's sold. So sometimes the distinction to be made, right, between pornography and something a little bit more like broad and not so hardcore, which would be erotic. This is something that has been around for a very long time. It is not a modern invention in any way. It is, you do need to be 18 in order to purchase it, but the internet is available to everyone and anyone, and a lot of people consume this way before the age of 18. Again, coming in numerous varieties and specialities, like every imaginable topic and niche is available. And I have like I said, it was like something just turned on. It scared me. There is a documentary about the history of pornography. There are some like really big names in it. And what I really appreciate about this documentary is it goes into some of the criteria for obscenity, which is something that we can touch on a little bit more next class. But I'm going to play the first part of it for you, and then we'll finish it next time. It's about 40 minutes or so. There is a lot of sexually explicit material in there. It's a documentary on pornography, but just to put that out there, there are definitely sexually explicit things in there. Talks a little bit about like Playboy, Hugh Hefner's in it as well. So it's a great like documentary that takes us up to right about 2005. right? So it stops right around there, and then we can talk more about like what's now and the internet and all that kind of stuff. But let me play this for you. You don't need to take notes, just pay attention. And it's going to kind of go over the industry and some of the history and controversy related to the idea of obscenity. And this is something that happens a lot here, as being near Hollywood and Burbank, where we have massive pornography like studios and industries. This is something that we see a lot of in Southern California. So I will play this for you. And again, we'll only get partway through it today. We'll finish it next time. Oh, I got tired of waiting for me. Hold on. There we go. So I'm gonna hit the lights. And again, you don't have to take notes or anything, just pay attention.
It was called smut. The rules were clear. It went too far. It was obscene. It offended the community standard of decency. The digital age and a political moment changed all of that. Now, pornography is a multi-billion-dollar business that has doubled in size in the last 5 years. As technology swept pornography into our living rooms, questions began to be raised about the old rules. In a wired world, who could say what offends